Picture this. You've got your courtside seats, the squeak of those sneakers,
Yeah.
the roar of that MSG crowd, and you're ready for like a classic Knicks Heat battle, right?
Absolutely.
But Monday, March 17th, 2025, something totally unexpected took over the spotlight. So we've got a whole stack of reports here, Sports Illustrated, CBS Sports People, Men's Journal, and they're all talking about this wild incident with comedian Tracy Morgan. Now, this is not your average water cooler talk. We are diving deep to figure out what exactly went down, why everyone's buzzing about it, and what we know so far.
Well, it's really interesting how everyone was anticipating this big athletic showdown, and then suddenly, bam, this very human and concerning event happens, and it just totally shifted everyone's focus, like everyone who was there and everyone watching, you know.
Yeah, so let's set the scene. It's the third quarter, Knicks and Heat are going at it, and then boom, reports start coming. Tracy Morgan, who's basically a permanent fixture at those courtside seats, apparently got sick right there on the court. And we're not talking about look, call for sneeze here. It was vomiting.
Yeah, the initial descriptions were pretty vivid, and it wasn't just that either. There were reports of a nosebleed, and maybe even more concerning, he seemed to be having trouble just standing up. So that kind of sets off some alarm bells right away, that it's more than just a simple stomach bug.
Oh, for sure. And naturally, social media was blowing up. There's this one tweet from @RealJoshBrownie that really captures it.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote, and I'm quoting here, Tracy Morgan getting wheeled out from courtside at MSG, bleeding from nose, could barely stand up. Hope he's okay. When you read something like that, you know it's serious business.
Yeah, that first-hand account really puts you right there. The details about the wheelchair and the trouble standing up, those are pretty telling observations from someone at the scene.
And then there's this other tweet from @HoopyHoops that just adds to the whole surreal vibe. It's a picture of what looks like a Knicks employee talking to a ref, and the caption is, "We don't have a mop." I mean, you almost don't know whether to laugh at how absurd it is or be even more worried for Morgan in this, like, bizarre cleanup situation.
Yeah, it really shows you how unpredictable live events can be. You've got all these procedures for normal game stuff, but this was obviously something else entirely. And even the staff were caught off guard for a second without a plan.
And you know what happened next? They actually stopped the game for about 10 minutes. Think about that. At a professional basketball game. It's not like calling a timeout. They had to actually halt the game because a spectator had a medical emergency.
Right. And pausing the whole game like that really speaks to the potential impact this had, not just visually, but, on the actual playing surface and the players' concentration. They had to make sure everything was taken care of before they could even think about continuing.
Exactly. And all the reports agree that Morgan was indeed wheeled out of there. And that video on social media we talked about showed him with a towel over his face, which, along with the nosebleed, makes it pretty clear he was dealing with something major. Courtside Buzz specifically mentioned that he was struggling to get up from his seat at first, too. So it definitely wasn't just a minor thing.
Yeah, taken all together, these details point to a sudden and pretty serious medical event. Needing a wheelchair to leave the arena tells you he wasn't in any shape to walk out on his own.
Now let's shift gears for a second and talk about the actual game. The Knicks were actually winning 64-58 when all this went down. CBS Sports mentioned it had been a pretty tight first half. So you have to wonder, even with this big disruption and playing without Jalen Brunson, the Knicks came back after the delay and just went off on a 24-6 run and ended up winning 116-95. Did this pause somehow give them a boost?
It's an interesting thought. Did that short break give them time to regroup, or maybe the shared concern for a familiar face in the crowd created like an unexpected sense of unity? It's tough to say for sure, but they definitely came back strong.
Oh, yeah, they did. And it's obvious that there's a lot of respect for Tracy Morgan within the whole Knicks organization. There was a statement from a Madison Square Garden representative and people that said, "We hope Tracy feels better soon and look forward to seeing him back courtside." That's a pretty direct and supportive message.
For sure. That official statement shows how much of a presence he has there and the good relationship he has with the venue and the team. It's a pretty standard sentiment in situations like this, but it definitely carries more weight because he's there so often.
And according to Men's Journal, Knicks player Josh Hart even talked about it after the game. He said, "We hope everything is good with Tracy Morgan, avid lifetime Knicks fans, so prayers go out to him and his health and safety." You can just hear the genuine concern in his voice.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows the bond between the team and their loyal fans, especially someone as visible and supportive as Morgan. It reminds you that they're all part of the same community.
And, it's important to remember, like we said, Tracy Morgan isn't just some random celebrity at a game.
Yeah.
He's always described as a fixture at Knicks games and a beloved figure by the fans. He's been a vocal and enthusiastic supporter for years.
Yeah, his longtime and very public support for the team has made him a familiar and welcome sight. This probably explains why people who see him courtside all the time are even more worried.
But to really get a sense of how serious this could be, we need to look back at Tracy Morgan's health history. He's been through a lot. Remember the kidney transplant back in 2010? But of course the big one was that awful car accident in June 2014. It was just devastating. He suffered a traumatic brain injury, a broken leg, was in a coma for 2 weeks, and had to relearn how to walk and talk. And tragically, his friend James McNair was killed in that same accident.
That accident was a huge turning point, and the way you described it shows just how massive his recovery was. The fact that he's still in the public eye and even went back to Knicks games says a lot about his resilience and determination.
Exactly. And just last month, during the SNL 50 celebrations, he even said he felt lucky to be alive after surviving that crash. So that really puts his latest incident into perspective within his whole health journey. Plus, he's been managing type 2 diabetes for over a decade. So he's dealt with some pretty serious health challenges in the past.
Considering all that, it makes sense that this recent event would cause even more concern. His past experiences definitely suggest a vulnerability that makes any sudden medical issue potentially more serious.
And that brings us to what we still don't know. As of right now, nobody knows exactly what caused what happened on Monday. The news reports say that Tracy Morgan's representatives haven't responded to requests for information yet. So we're stuck putting the pieces together from eyewitness accounts and official statements.
Yeah, it's understandable that they haven't released any information right away. His health and well-being would obviously come first. But it does leave room for speculation, and it's natural for people to wonder about the specifics.
Absolutely. And it makes you think about how different this is from the usual game day stuff. We hear about spilled drinks all the time, right. The quick cleanup. But something like vomiting on the court, that's a whole other ballgame. It affects the players and the game in a much more direct and honestly unpleasant way.
You're right. That comparison really highlights how unusual and significant this event was. Minor disruptions happen all the time, but a medical incident like this is a much bigger deal and requires a much more serious response.
And through it all, you keep coming back to this image of Morgan as a diehard Knicks fan. He wasn't just there for a photo op. He's a genuine supporter who's at game after game. This incident, as unfortunate as it is, happened while he was doing what he loves, supporting his team.
Yeah, his constant presence really shows his passion, which makes this interruption even more noteworthy for the people who are used to seeing him courtside cheering on the Knicks.
So let's sum it all up. We saw Tracy Morgan, a longtime and beloved Knicks fan, suddenly get sick courtside during a game against the Heat. It involved vomiting, a reported nosebleed, and trouble standing up, which ultimately led to him being taken out in a wheelchair and the game being stopped for a while. We heard expressions of concern from the Knicks organization and player Josh Hart, and we've taken into account his past health challenges, which of course add another layer of concern even though the exact cause of this incident is still a mystery.
Yes, it was a combination of things. A sudden health event happening to a well-known person in a very public setting, causing a real disruption to a major sporting event, and prompting immediate concern from the team and other fans. And all this happened within the context of his well-documented health history.
It really makes you stop and think about how life can throw you a curveball. You know, you've got this exciting game going on, and then suddenly it's interrupted by something so personal and worrying. It makes you think about the well-being of people in the public eye who we often see as these larger-than-life figures, and the fact that we're all vulnerable when it comes to our health. Maybe it's worth taking a look at Tracy Morgan's career and the incredible strength he's shown in overcoming past difficulties. It's a reminder that even the most vibrant people can face unexpected challenges.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's definitely a reminder to appreciate every moment and never take our health for granted. We're all rooting for Tracy Morgan to make a full recovery, and hopefully we'll see him back courtside soon.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
See you later.